So on March 2nd, 2021, Governor Greg Abbott of Texas basically announced that Texas was reopened for business. They lifted the mask mandate, and other states have followed in doing so. And it kind of seems to echo an end of a gradual light at the end of the tunnel for COVID. Obviously, we probably still have much of 2021 where there'll be some level of social distancing and mask wearing in many places. And, as this doesn't apply to private businesses, but I can say that, I think it's encouraging how many people are getting vaccinated. I, as an educator, was able to get vaccinated just a couple of weeks ago with a Moderna vaccine. And so it's exciting. It's hopeful. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about this tonight as it relates to our cities and our societies and our society in general.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good topic. It's very pertinent. Yeah. And yeah, like I told you earlier, Chuck, this is normally when we do these videos, I do some level of preparation. I have some sort of notes, and with this one, I was just like, you tell me what we're talking about, and we'll just go.
Yeah, that works. Yeah,
and I think this is a good idea.
Consumers of the market, and so I think it fits well here. So
right. So one thing that was cool as we sort of ease into this topic, one thing that was cool is that you had spring break this week.
Yes.
And
yes.
Like all the other maybe naive and rambunctious teenagers, you decided to come to South Florida for your spring break.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. I hear that because of us crazy kids, they had to issue a state of emergency actually in South Beach, particularly where the level of overcrowding and all of that stuff. And
it's madness.
I will clarify that we did not go to South Beach. We went to Dadeland area, which is kind of in a relatively more I don't know if I'd call it entirely suburban part of Miami, but it's not South Beach,
No, definitely not.
So it was interesting to see, and I think encouraging to see.
You weren't going down for like any partying or intimate interactions with other people. Maybe you saw a couple people, and including yours truly, and we were very, very social distanced during our time together.
Very much so, yes.
Obviously,
and so it was, and we were traveling with an 8-month-old daughter, and so that was, eye-opening in terms of, the fun and also the challenges that come with traveling with an 8-month-old. So, we learned a lot in doing so, and it will help us, I think, on future trips. But it was, I think encouraging to me to see that, like, even as we are kind of emerging from this, that many people are still wearing the masks, because I think that will prevent any unnecessary spikes in the last part of this thing. I mean, it's already been such a tragedy over the past year of such a scale, with over 500,000 that have died in the U.S. over this time. And so it's, I'm hoping that as more and more of the population, I think DeSantis announced this week that it's going down to 50. And I think in other parts of the country, that age limit has been lowered even further. I think Mike DeWine announced that on March 29th in Ohio, it's going to go down to, I think, 16 and up. So it's basically going to be many people in the general population are going to be able to have access to this for the first time. So I think that will hopefully help us to gradually progress out of this thing.
Yeah, of course. President Biden, a week or two ago, stated that May 1st was sort of the target for when vaccines would be available to all adults. And I'm sure that in Florida, Governor DeSantis will want to get that rolling before deadline, if you will. So I'm optimistic that I, not being an educator or a frontline worker, that I will be eligible to sign up and register. We'll see when I can take it, but at least I'll be eligible to make an appointment in April.
Yeah, yeah. I really hope for that too, and that's I think that will be coming. It's just a matter of just the scale of all of this, because like even for us, I mean, it was a matter of luck with really getting in. I mean, we really signed up for the vaccine appointment around just after midnight and on Thursday, which I guess is when their new appointments at Walmart opened up for the week. And so it was really a matter of chance that we happened to be awake at that time and available to help, and also get some of our other family members that are in some ways more vulnerable if they're older in age and all that stuff to get their appointments made.
Yeah, that's a big thing for like my father-in-law has completed both of his doses. My parents will complete theirs tomorrow, and then my mother-in-law, she has the first shot, and so the second one will come in a few weeks. So yeah, for our household, because my in-laws and my parents have been sort of mingling or quarantining, I guess, in our bubble with us all the time. So yeah, for our household, that'll be a big relief. And
that'll be very meaningful. Yes, absolutely. So that's good. That's good, and I hope that happens soon for you as well. Yes. So
yeah. So so talking about moving forward, I guess how do you see things developing and changing for you on a personal level, and then also as a society here in the U.S. as a community?
So I think one thing that was really poignant in about the first month or two of the pandemic, I mean, we were really home with our families, and it was kind of, I mean, like, we worked remotely, so we were home all the time, and there was something beautiful about that. And I remember reading something, it was like, we shouldn't just strive to go back to exactly as normal. We should figure out what aspects of normal are worth going back to. And so one of the things that I really hope is that remote work is here to stay and here to grow. I think that a lot of students actually learn better in that capacity. Like, actually, like, I think it's just like, it's not all one size fits all. I think that some of the students do certainly struggle and have benefited from being able to go back to campus this year. There's no denying that. But I also think that being able to have a better idea of how to use the technology and submit things like that is very helpful. And I think like, we have a society right now where our second biggest expense is our vehicle, and we spend over an hour a day commuting or whatever. And so like, I think some of those changes that I hope are lasting are maybe that idea of the 15-minute city more on a broad scale, where we're making decisions about how to build and structure our work and life so that we don't have to be using such an inefficient amount of our time like that.
Yeah.
That's one big hope for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is not something we've ever discussed together before. So it's interesting for me to hear you say that. You being an educator, you and your wife as well, both being K through 12 educators, to hear you say that, because I feel like that perspective, I don't hear that very often.
Yeah.
That remote learning is a positive for some people. To be clear, you're just saying for some students.
Yes, for some students, yeah.
But yeah, no, I without your background, I feel the same way. Of course, I imagine that percentage would be very small, but certainly there are students who benefit from that.
Yes.
In the online school, world school, unschool community,
right.
Maybe even homeschooling. Now, to also to be clear and fair to these alternative schooling methods, having your child at home doing this like last minute thrown together sort of remote learning package that everybody was put into, that's not really proper. Any of those things.
It isn't how it should be. No.
Yeah, but that said, following these communities of alternative schooling, it has opened my eyes to the fact that a lot of students can benefit from um, managing their own schedule and their own curriculum and their own
Yes.
lessons
I think, yeah.
in a much more efficient manner than what what a student would get at a traditional school. So
I would agree. Yeah.
So yeah, if your child or you are of a disposition that would benefit from that, then yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah. I think it's about being a self-starter and about being, I think also the online setup should be such that the resources are, clearly articulated and available to, get the knowledge and succeed. But I think a lot of times students get lost in the everyday meeting classroom and not really having in some cases not having plenty of time to sit there and be presented information, but not necessarily the time to absorb it or reflect on it. And there's a certain level of characteristic that a student needs to actually, use that time wisely. But but I do think for some students they really do benefit from that. Yes.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Again, not a topic that you and I have ever touched on before.
Yeah.
In our private conversations or on the show, but yeah, interesting to hear you say that. So
yeah.
So let me go back to the trip. You came down to Miami for a couple days to South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I got to see you very briefly. I think it was like a 30-minute meetup. So
yeah.
And we went down to downtown Doral,
Mm-hmm.
which is about 10 minutes from my house. I guess you say that I toured you around.
Yes,
downtown Doral, which
master tour guide there.
I'm certainly not an expert on the area, but I've been there a few times. And in the pandemic in particular, it's really transformed into a really cool place. Because they've closed off some roads and they've really made it like a more pedestrian scale.
Oh yes,
environment. So yeah, it was cool to take you around there. Any thoughts or impressions?
So one of the things that stood out to me was as I hope and kind of to articulate in detail what we were seeing. I did see some of that in Dataland as well, which you can see on our live feed. And basically what was happening was the street, which was normally passed through for cars, was basically entirely blocked off for vehicles, and it was like the type of street that kids could run around and play in. You could look at public art or walk around the decor that's there on the street. You could dine in the middle of the street on the sidewalk, as opposed to eating in the restroom, not in the restroom, in the restaurant. So kind of more akin to European style in the al fresco sense, which America, I think, has traditionally resisted. And so it's nice to see that even after that became more of a want rather than a need, that Doral has been progressive enough to embrace that. And so I guess another thing that's kind of interesting with that is whether this trend of movement that seems to be happening more towards the Sunbelt cities and Florida and Texas in particular will continue to accelerate after the pandemic.
Yeah. That's that's like a macro kind of question. I think is harder to predict with certainty. But we have talked about this somewhat.
Yes.
About how we see demographics shifting with the pandemic, and I guess I would say I certainly don't think it's going to slow down anything. But yeah, it's not going to slow down. It's not going to hurt. I think the pandemic maybe the idea that our massive urban superstar cities like New York and San Francisco that are very expensive and also very, very dense. The idea that they're gonna like suddenly collapse, I think is you know
Yeah.
overblown and sort of yeah, just misleading, mischaracterizing the situation.
Correct. Yeah.
But that said, I do think that there will be a shift towards lower cost, medium-sized metros.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a tsunami or a huge wave, but I think that you'll see them be sort of the largest
Yeah.
gainers.
Kind of that post-win,
Yeah.
which we're already kind of seeing that post. We're seeing some of the results of that, but yeah, I think that's
So
I would agree that's going to continue. And another thing to that, and it's one that is hard to really delve into without getting in some way political, but I think it's in some ways a level of I think in the South it's easier to be al fresco in general in terms of like especially in the winter months and everything, but it's also kind of the big complaints of like the Texas and Florida was like they weren't doing enough, and their measures were like too like not like restrictive enough, and it was causing people to increase the death count and everything like that. And then on the other side of the coin, you had California and New York, where it was more of a draconian. If you're talking about it in a negative sense, right? There was more draconian. It was more authoritarian, and the restrictions of people's lives in those places were heavier than they were in Florida and Texas. And what did come out of things, and not exactly scientifically per se, but the death counts in the cases in those areas still ended up not being as different as people initially would have predicted. So I guess it's also kind of a battle of which one more people as a percentage of population prefer.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And I just don't think that the way that it was handled by any of these states is going to have a long-lasting impact on their populations or their businesses that are based there. People usually have short memories.
Yes, they do.
And especially with these big cities, there's such high turnover anyway. You may have people who are disgusted who leave, but they're going to be replaced by people who have no memory of what happened, who weren't living there, who weren't going through that. And assuming that this type of pandemic and these measures aren't a recurring theme every couple of years, then I don't think this is really going to have a long-lasting effect on those things. New York, San Francisco, places like that, the markets may soften a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's going to be people moving in to replace them, and maybe at slightly more affordable cost of living. Maybe not. We'll see. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see a seismic shift in that area. So to your question about the South, places like Florida and Texas, who are already huge population gainers in the past couple of decades. This
in the grand scheme of things, COVID probably won't be when you look at the affecting factors, that might not be a deciding one per se.
Right. I think, to me, more than anything, the shift will be sort of on that metro level, talking about like sort of the mid-sized, more affordable metros,
having more opportunity
because of remote work, and because they still offer a lot of amenities that people are used to and conveniences that people are used to, while at a lower price tag. So
right. So that makes sense. And so I think that part, it really gives an opportunity then to a number of these places, and even to Tulsas of the world that are doing their remote work experiments and all that, to really make their case to people and why their city is the best for when you don't really need to be anywhere, and so that's kind of, yeah, we'll see how that unfolds.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I think another thing that I was thinking about in terms of like that was just that those are like industry kind of cornerstones in a way, and so like they like the New Yorks and San Francisco's aren't going away, but I think it might provide opportunity for again like some satellite markets and all of that to open up. So yeah.
Satellites, as in like within an hour or two of those cities.
Well, I mean, I guess when I'm thinking more just like, we might see more hubs, like the fact that like Atlanta is opening offices. I think that is in some ways a symptom of the pandemic, or at least that the fact that that's accelerated is a symptom of the pandemic, because they're realizing people want more choice, and so that's kind of a legacy of that. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So
all right, Chuck, I guess that wraps it up for today.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, sounds good, man. All right.